Wow, you guys have been sending in some really fascinating notes and articles all about personal growth and success,
Yeah, it looks like everyone's trying to figure out how to increase their value.
both personally and out in the world.
I love it.
Okay.
So get ready because today we are diving deep into all of it.
It's going to be good.
It is. You know, what's so cool about what you've all sent in is that there's this incredible mix of ideas from psychology and personal development.
Yeah, it's like everything from like self-worth to figuring out your talents, even advice on how to put those talents into action.
Like a real treasure chest. We got to dig through it.
Exactly. Today's mission is to go through it all like a treasure hunt
Yeah.
and find those golden nuggets, the most powerful takeaways. Will help you understand your worth, use your strengths, and become the most valuable version of yourself.
That's the goal.
Now, one of the first things that I noticed in everyone's notes was this idea of perceived value,
Right.
how much we believe we're worth.
And that is a really important starting point, because that perceived value, it impacts almost everything in our lives. Our decisions, what opportunities we see, even how happy we are overall. And it really connects with the concept from Chinese philosophy, ute, which means deservingness.
So it's about really, truly feeling worthy of good things happening to us.
You got it. But here's something people often miss, and that's the flip side. Bupedegen.
Say that again?
Bupedegen.
Right.
It means a lack of deservingness.
Oh.
And this is where low self-worth creeps in and starts holding us back from achieving what we're capable of.
You know, it reminded me of that story someone sent in about getting a really expensive gift and feeling like super uncomfortable, almost like they didn't deserve it. That perfectly illustrates this boupedigan, right?
Totally. It's like this belief deep down that we're not good enough, not worthy of success or happiness. And what's interesting is that this sense of self-worth often starts way back, in our past experiences, particularly during childhood.
It's like we pick up these messages from how we were raised, from our culture, from society's expectations, and we carry them with us, sometimes without even knowing it.
It's true. And those messages can shape how we see ourselves and make decisions.
So let's talk about signs that someone might be struggling with low self-worth. One that stood out to me was being uncomfortable with praise.
Yeah, I know that one.
Like you want to deflect compliments or downplay your achievements.
You don't want to take credit. Have you ever felt that yourself?
Oh, totally. It feels almost wrong or undeserved to accept praise.
Right. But here's a tip. If you catch yourself doing that, challenge yourself to just say thank you and own that accomplishment.
Simple but powerful.
It's a small shift, but over time, it can change your mindset. Now, the second sign, being really sensitive to criticism.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is. It's that tendency to take any negative feedback as a personal attack, even if it's meant to be helpful.
So instead of seeing it as a chance to grow, it just makes you doubt yourself even more.
Exactly. So if you find yourself getting defensive or taking criticism too personally, try this. Pause and ask yourself, is there any truth to this feedback? Can I learn from this, even if it's uncomfortable? Reframing criticism as a chance to get better can help.
Makes sense. So we've got discomfort with praise and sensitivity to criticism. What's that third sign of low self-worth, and what can we do about it?
The third one is self-sabotage, and it's sneaky. It might look like procrastinating on a big project or making choices that hurt your chances of success or even staying in situations that aren't good for you.
Like subconsciously proving that I'm not good enough belief.
You got it.
But that's hard to catch, isn't it? Any advice on how to stop doing that to ourselves?
The first step is noticing it. Pay attention to when you're holding yourself back. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it fear? Lack of confidence? Once you know the root cause, you can start changing it and making better choices.
So 3 red flags. We've got discomfort with praise, sensitivity to criticism, and self-sabotage. But how do we actually dismantle these negative beliefs and start feeling more worthy?
That's where these sources get really interesting. They offer some practical ways to rewrite that inner voice. One of the most powerful is having an honest conversation with your parents.
I can see that being tough for some people. Not everyone has that kind of relationship with their parents, right?
It's true, and the sources acknowledge that. But if it's possible for you, revisiting those old criticisms and trying to understand where they were coming from can be incredibly healing.
So it's not about placing blame. It's more about understanding and maybe seeing things from their point of view.
Exactly. Like maybe those criticisms weren't meant to be hurtful, but came from a place of love or their own limitations.
Seeking understanding and compassion, both for yourself and for your parents.
Yeah. Now, this next technique might sound a little strange, but stick with me. The empty chair technique.
Ooh, this sounds interesting.
It's a visualization exercise from Gestalt therapy. You picture yourself sitting across from an empty chair, and in that chair, you imagine your parent, the one whose criticism has really stuck with you.
So you're creating a safe space to have a conversation you might not be able to have in real life.
Exactly. And here's how it works. You start by saying everything you've been holding back to that imagined version of your parent. Let it all out. The hurt, the anger, the frustration. Then you switch roles. Sit in the parent's chair and respond to yourself, but from their perspective.
Wow, that could be a powerful way to gain a new understanding and maybe even some forgiveness and compassion. But what if talking to your parents, even in your imagination, just isn't possible?
Hmm.
What other advice do the sources offer? Well, for those situations, they talk about this idea of like living better than your parents.
Yeah.
Now, I know that sounds a little maybe controversial at first.
It's not about bragging or anything like that, it's more about recognizing that you might have advantages and opportunities they never had.
So instead of feeling guilty about it, we should see it as a result of their hard work, their sacrifices.
Right. They helped create a better life for you.
Exactly. And it's our chance to make the most of those opportunities. Which kind of leads us to this other big part of this value thing,
Yeah.
discovering our talents and really using our strengths. What if we stopped focusing so much on fixing our weaknesses?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so easy to get stuck trying to be good at everything.
Oh, yeah.
We spread ourselves too thin instead of nurturing the things that make us unique.
It reminds me of that bucket theory, in personal development,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like our biggest weakness is the limit of our potential.
Right, like a leaky bucket.
Well,
But these sources actually argue that that whole approach can be really counterproductive.
so instead of trying to plug every tiny hole in the bucket, we should focus on the strongest parts.
Exactly. It's like trying to make a fish climb a tree. The sources actually offer this really cool alternative model. It's called the plank theory.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this plank theory.
Okay, so picture a wooden barrel, right, made of planks of different length. The amount of water the barrel can hold, it isn't determined by the shortest plank, but by the longest one.
Oh, I get it.
So it's saying that we achieve more by focusing on our individual strengths. Those are our longest planks.
Instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, master of none, we should be a master of our own unique things.
Yeah,
But how do we even figure out what those talents are?
that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
So the sources define talent as like an innate ability, something we do naturally and excel at.
So it's not just about hard work, but also recognizing where our natural strengths lie.
Yeah, it's got to feel effortless, like you're in a flow state when you're doing it. And you know what? I think you have a great tool for this, the three circles model, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so tell us about it.
The three circles model. It's this simple but really effective way to identify your talents and connect them with your purpose. So the first circle, it's all about what you want to do. Your passions, interests, hobbies, things you're excited about.
Those things that light you up.
Exactly. The second circle is everything you can do.
Yeah,
Your skills, your abilities, what you're good at, even if you don't necessarily love it.
right.
And then the third circle, this is where it gets interesting, is everything you should do.
It's all those responsibilities, your commitments, maybe even those expectations from society or your family.
Things we may not love doing, but are still important. And then things get really interesting where these circles overlap.
That's where the magic happens. So tell me, what happens when want and can overlap?
All right, so want and can, that's your passion zone.
Your sweet spot.
It's where you're both good at something and passionate about it, a recipe for true excellence. Right.
Absolutely. What about can and should?
Can and should, that's your professional zone. This is where your skills and abilities match up with your responsibilities.
Where you can make a real impact. Now, what about want and should?
That's cool. Want and should overlap. That's your meaning zone. These are things that really align with your values and your sense of purpose,
Powerful stuff.
even if they're not always fun or easy. And finally, there's the sweet spot of all three circles overlapping.
The ultimate trifecta.
That's where your unique talents are, the things you're passionate about, skilled at, and that also align with your purpose.
You're in the zone there, but how do you actually find this sweet spot? Sounds a bit like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right.
So these sources suggest a few things. First, think about the activities where you excel naturally, like you're on autopilot, And don't be afraid to ask for feedback from others. Sometimes they see strengths in us that we don't even realize we have.
Yeah, they can see us more objectively.
Exactly. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, keep learning about yourself.
So we've talked about recognizing our worths
Yeah.
and figuring out our talents, but now how do we put it all into action? This is where that Chinese philosophy idea you mentioned earlier comes in, right?
Thank you, Brad.
会 mix Zixinghe.
You got it. It means knowledge and action are one. It's about the difference between knowing something in your head and truly understanding it through experience.
So it's not enough to just read about these ideas. We have to actually live them,
Exactly.
embody them.
The sources actually use some great examples. Imagine someone telling you a pear is sweet. You hear the words, right?
Right.
But until you actually taste that sweetness,
Yeah.
your understanding is just surface level.
Oh, I totally get that. It's like you can read about the benefit of exercise, but it's not the same as actually going for a run and feeling your heart pumping, your muscles working.
Exactly. It's in the doing that knowledge becomes real.
So how do we bridge the gap between knowing and doing? How do we take those aha moments and make them into tangible results? I feel like we've got this amazing toolbox now, full of personal growth tools, but how do we actually, use them?
That's the key, right? It's got to be more than just aha moments. We got to turn those insights into action.
Right. So if we find a talent we're passionate about, we don't just, sit on it.
No, absolutely not. You have to find ways to express it, to develop it, even if you're just taking baby steps at first.
So take that spark of inspiration and, turn it into a bonfire.
I love that analogy. And what about those negative thoughts that hold us back? That self-criticism.
Yeah.
You got to consciously replace those thoughts with positive ones. Start small instead of, I can't do this. I'm learning and I'm getting better every day.
Like we're training our brains to be more positive, to believe in ourselves.
Yeah. And if you've found something you're really passionate about, something that feels like your purpose, don't let fear stop you.
No.
Go for it, even if it feels scary. These sources really highlight the power of small, consistent actions. They might not seem like much at the time, but they build up and create big change.
Like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. And remember, this is your own personal journey. What works for one person might not work for another. So try things out, find what feels right for you, adjust as you go. There's no one right way to do this personal growth thing.
I think that's really important. We've covered so much in this deep dive. Understanding our worth, discovering our talents, putting those talents into action. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and here's the bottom line. Recognizing your value, finding those unique talents, and then taking action, those are the keys to unlocking your potential and becoming the best, most valuable version of yourself.
I love that.
It's not always easy, though. It takes effort. You have to be willing to look inward. But trust me, it's so worth it.
So as we wrap up, here's a final thought for you all. What's one small thing, even a tiny thing, that you can do today to put some of these ideas into practice? It could be having a conversation, taking some time to reflect, trying a new skill. Even the smallest actions can create big ripples.
Absolutely. And remember, this journey of growth, it never really ends. It's about constantly learning and evolving and becoming the best version of you. So enjoy the ride.
I love that. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into unlocking your true value. We can't wait to see what amazing things you accomplish as you keep exploring and growing. Until next time, happy exploring.